The city of Pompeii stirred beneath a gentle haze of morning light. Its streets, slick with dew, carried the quiet footsteps of bakers, merchants, and slaves, while the air hung warm, heavy with the scent of fresh bread and crushed olives. Children's laughter echoed between frescoed walls, painted with gods who, for now, still seemed to be listening. Life was ordinary, perfectly, tragically ordinary. Above it all loomed Mount Vesuvius, silent, vast. Its slopes shimmered under the rising sun, green with vineyards, offering a quiet illusion of peace. Few people looked up at it anymore. To the citizens of Pompeii, the mountain wasn't a threat, but a companion, ancient, patient, and eternal. They built their lives in its shadow, never suspecting that the mountain was also listening. In the villa of a wealthy merchant named Lucius Marcellus, slaves opened the shutters to let in the day. Marble floors gleamed, and bronze statues seemed to breathe as they caught the sunlight. Lucius was a man of his time, confident, indulgent, devoted to commerce and spectacle. His ships carried wine across the Bay of Naples. His tables groaned beneath imported delicacies. He was proud of his city, its elegance, its prosperity. He believed in permanence. But beneath the laughter of the fountain and the clatter of the atrium, a faint tremor rippled through the earth. It passed like a sigh, gentle and almost tender, but it made the water in the fountain quiver. The slaves paused, glancing at each other. Then they continued their work. The last tremor had been weeks ago. Nothing had happened then. It was nothing. At the city's edge, farmers tending their vines felt the ground shift. They looked toward the mountain, shading their eyes from the glare. Thin trails of smoke rose from its crown, so faint they almost seemed like illusions. A shepherd crossed himself. Others just laughed it off. Vulcan's forge, they said, believing the god of fire was simply tending to his craft. There was comfort in the story. It made the tremors feel divine, not deadly. In the amphitheater, a rehearsal for the next day's games was underway. The air smelled of sweat, leather, and dust. Gladiators trained under the lash of their instructor, their bodies gleaming in the sun. Among them, a young fighter named Cassian struck at a wooden post with ferocity. The chain at his ankle rattled, a constant reminder that his freedom was to be earned in blood. He paused for breath, looking toward the distant mountain. It shimmered in the heat. For a moment, he thought he saw a thin, dark cloud twisting upward, like smoke from a dying fire. He blinked, and it was gone. In the temple of Venus, the priestess Aelia prepared the morning offerings. She moved with solemn grace, pouring oil and petals onto the altar. Her prayers rose into the air, mingling with the scent of incense and salt. She had heard whispers, that the gods were restless, that the earth's belly growled in warning. Yet as she lifted her hands toward the sunlight, her faith held firm. "The gods do not abandon the faithful," she murmured. But her eyes betrayed her. She, too, had seen the smoke. By noon, the city swelled with sound. Vendors shouted prices, donkeys brayed, fountains splashed. The hum of life filled every alley as the heat pressed down, thick and unmoving. In the forum, Lucius met with other merchants. They discussed profits, gossip, and politics. The tremor was forgotten, swallowed by the noise of civilization's self-assurance. Yet in the distance, the mountain began to darken. Birds scattered from its slopes. The smoke that had been so faint in the morning now grew denser, blacker, writhing upward in spirals. It was the color of iron and smelled of rot. Fishermen along the coast noticed the sea retreating, a strange, silent withdrawal that exposed rocks that hadn't seen air in centuries. They watched in confusion as fish flopped helplessly on the sand. Then the wind shifted, and the smell of sulfur rolled in like a warning from the gods. Inside the city, the first stones fell from the sky. They were tiny, white, and seemingly harmless, like hail from a strange storm. People looked up in awe. Some laughed. Children chased the falling fragments, catching them in their hands. They didn't know they were catching the first ashes of the dead mountain. The sky dimmed slightly. A murmur spread through the crowds. The laughter faltered. In Lucius's villa, his wife, Valeria, stood on the balcony, shading her eyes. "It's snowing," she whispered. But it wasn't snow. The flakes burned when they touched the skin. The servants began to close the shutters, though daylight still lingered. Somewhere beyond the city walls, a deep, hollow roar echoed across the valley. The dogs began to bark. Cassian heard it too, in the amphitheater. The sound came not from above but from beneath, the earth itself growling like a living thing. Dust fell from the rafters. The instructor shouted for everyone to stay calm. Then another tremor struck, much stronger this time. The ground heaved. The arena stones cracked, and men fell to their knees. Cassian looked toward the mountain. The sky behind it was no longer blue. It had turned the color of bruised flesh. In the temple, Aelia clutched the altar as the marble floor trembled beneath her feet. Oil spilled. The flames flared, and then went out. Statues toppled, shattering against the stone. She fell to her knees among the debris, whispering the names of gods who did not answer. The temple's columns groaned. Outside, the birds had vanished. The world was holding its breath. The sun began to fade behind a curtain of ash. The air grew thick and heavy. People coughed, covering their mouths with cloth. The sound of the sea was gone, replaced by a distant thunder that rolled without lightning. In the harbor, waves retreated again, exposing the ship's keels. Fishermen ran inland, shouting warnings that no one could hear over the growing roar. The mountain's crown glowed faintly red. Lucius looked up from his courtyard as the first plume exploded into the sky. It rose like a pillar of fire, splitting the heavens. The sound came seconds later, a blast that tore the air apart. Windows shattered. People screamed. The plume climbed higher, blackening the sun, spreading like wings across the horizon. The day was ending, though the hour was not yet past noon. Ash began to fall in earnest now, thicker, darker. Roofs sagged beneath its weight. The streets filled with a gray mist that tasted of salt and metal. Cassian fled the amphitheater, stumbling into the chaos. Aelia crawled from the ruins of the temple, clutching a broken idol. Lucius stood frozen in his doorway, his wealth, his walls, his certainty collapsing around him. In the distance, the mountain roared again, a voice of fire calling to no one and to everyone. By evening, Pompeii was unrecognizable. The fountains had gone silent. The streets were empty, except for those who could no longer flee. The ash fell thicker, muting all sound but its own soft whisper. The sky was gone, swallowed by darkness. And beneath that darkness, the city waited, unaware that this was not the end of a day, but the beginning of eternity. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a testament to the lives lived and lost in one of history's most famous moments. If you found this journey into the past moving, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories from history. We'll see you next time. Imagine walking down a street frozen in time. Not by a clock, but by a mountain. This isn't a movie set. This is a real place, a ghost of the past, sealed away for nearly 2,000 years under a thick blanket of volcanic ash and pumice. Look around. The silence here is profound, broken only by the whispers of the wind. This was once a bustling thoroughfare, alive with the sounds of merchants hawking their wares, children laughing, and the rumble of wagon wheels on stone. Now it's a silent testament to a single catastrophic day. See how the ash is piled up against this doorway? It's almost halfway up. It didn't just fall like snow. It surged through these streets in a superheated wave, a pyroclastic flow moving at hurricane speeds. It filled every nook and cranny, preserving the city at the exact moment of its demise. For the people inside, there was no escape. The very air they breathed turned to fire and poison. This high level of ash tells us something crucial about the eruption's final, deadliest phases. The initial fall of pumice stones would have been terrifying, But this surge of ash and gas is what entombed the city so perfectly and so tragically. It's a geological fingerprint left by the volcano, a clue for the archaeologists who would uncover this place centuries later. Down here on the ground, history lies scattered at our feet. Look at these fragments. This isn't just broken rock. This is pottery. Amphorae, perhaps, that once held wine from the fertile slopes of the very volcano that would destroy them. Or maybe plates and bowls from a family's evening meal, interrupted forever. Each shard is a piece of a puzzle, a tiny fragment of a life. Imagine the hands that crafted this, the family that used it. It connects us directly to them, across the gulf of millennia. Archaeologists treat these fragments like treasure. By studying the clay, the shape, and the decoration, they can learn about trade routes, local industries, and even the diet of the people who lived here. It's like reading a book written in terracotta. They piece them together, painstakingly, trying to reconstruct not just the pot, but the world it came from. And then, you see something that stops you in your tracks, something incredibly personal. Right there, half buried in the dust, is a sandal, a single, simple leather sandal. It's not a grand monument or a priceless jewel. It's an everyday object, but in this context, it's one of the most powerful things you can see. You can't help but wonder about its owner. Were they running? Did they stumble? Was it a child, a man, a woman? This one small item tells a story of panic, of a desperate flight for life that ultimately failed. This sandal makes the immense scale of the disaster intensely personal. It bridges the 2,000-year gap and reminds us that the victims weren't just a number in a history book. They were real people, with families, hopes, and routines, just like us. They put on their sandals in the morning, never imagining they wouldn't live to take them off. The street itself is a marvel. Look at the paving stones, worn smooth by countless footsteps and chariot wheels. You can still see the grooves cut into them. These weren't just for decoration, they were ruts, deliberately carved to guide the wheels of carts and wagons, keeping them stable on the uneven surfaces. It's a testament to ancient Roman engineering and city planning. On either side, we see the remains of what were once homes and shops. These are called insulae, the apartment blocks of the Roman world. The ground floors were often shops, or tabernae, opening directly onto the street. You can almost picture a baker pulling hot bread from an oven, or a weaver working at a loom, the sounds and smells spilling out into the busy lane. The families lived in the apartments above. The preservation here is so remarkable that in some places you can still see traces of painted plaster on the walls, faded frescoes depicting mythological scenes, gardens, or simple geometric patterns. These people loved color and art. They filled their homes with beauty. It's a poignant reminder that this was a vibrant, living community, full of culture and life. Let's pause for a moment and consider the human element. The archaeologists who excavated this street faced an enormous and somber task. They weren't just digging for artifacts. They were uncovering a graveyard. Famously, they found voids in the hardened ash where the bodies of victims had decomposed. By carefully pouring plaster into these cavities, they were able to create hauntingly detailed casts of the people in their final moments. These casts show individuals huddled together, shielding their faces, or trying to protect their children. They are a direct physical record of human suffering, and they are treated with the utmost respect. They remind us that archaeology is not just about the past. It's about humanity, in all its fragility and resilience. Walking this street is a deeply moving experience. Every detail, from the high watermark of the ash to the shattered pottery and the lost sandal, tells a part of the same epic story. It's a story of a thriving civilization, the terrifying power of nature, and the sudden, violent end of a world. But it's also a story of discovery and remembrance. By studying this place, we honor the people who were lost here. We give them a voice, allowing them to speak to us across the centuries. We learn not only about how they died, but about how they lived. This abandoned street is not just an archaeological site. It's a powerful lesson from history, preserved in ash, reminding us of the preciousness of every single moment. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's a somber but important story to tell. If you found this moving and want to explore more hidden corners of history with me, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us continue to bring these stories to light. See you next time. Voiceover begins over a breathtaking aerial shot of Pompeii at dawn. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to walk through a city frozen in time? To trace the footsteps of people who lived 2,000 years ago, their final moments captured forever by a force of nature so powerful it defied imagination. Welcome to Pompeii. As the sun's first golden rays stretch across the sky, they illuminate a scene of haunting beauty. Below us, the ancient city awakens, not to the hustle and bustle of its former life, but to the quiet reverence of history. These are the streets, the homes, the temples of Pompeii, nestled in the shadow of the mighty Mount Vesuvius, which even now sends a faint plume of smoke into the morning air, a gentle reminder of its immense power. For centuries, this city thrived. It was a bustling hub of Roman life, a place of commerce, art, politics, and family. Imagine these cobblestone streets, which we see so clearly from above, once filled with the sounds of chariot wheels, the chatter of merchants in the forum, the laughter of children playing in the courtyards. Look closely at the layout, the grand villas of the wealthy, the modest workshops of artisans, the bakeries with their stone mills still in place. Every structure tells a story. But in the year 79 AD, everything changed. In one catastrophic day, Vesuvius erupted, burying Pompeii and its neighbor Herculaneum under a thick blanket of ash and pumice. It wasn't a slow-moving lava flow. It was a pyroclastic surge, a superheated cloud of gas and debris that moved at terrifying speed, preserving the city in a way that no one could have ever anticipated. It was an unimaginable tragedy, but it created an unparalleled archaeological treasure. The very thing that destroyed Pompeii also immortalized it, creating a near-perfect snapshot of Roman life. Join me as we descend from the sky and step into this time capsule. We will explore the lives of its citizens, uncover their secrets, admire their art, and piece together the final dramatic hours of this legendary lost city. This isn't just a tour of ruins. It's a journey back in time. We'll walk through grand public buildings, like the amphitheater, one of the oldest in the Roman world, where gladiators once fought for the roaring crowds. We'll step inside private residences, marveling at the intricate frescoes and mosaics that still burst with color after 2 millennia. These vibrant artworks tell us so much about their beliefs, their tastes, and their daily routines. We'll visit the Forum, the heart of Pompeii's civic and commercial life. Picture it as it was, surrounded by majestic temples dedicated to gods like Jupiter and Apollo, bustling with politicians debating in the basilica, and vendors selling everything from fresh fish to exotic spices in the Macellum, or marketplace. The graffiti still scrawled on the walls serves as a public diary, with everything from political slogans to lovers' declarations, giving us a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the minds of the Pompeians. One of the most moving and famous aspects of Pompeii is the plaster casts of the victims. When archaeologists began excavating in the 19th century, they found voids in the hardened ash. By carefully pouring plaster into these cavities, they were able to create detailed casts of the people and animals in their final moments. These figures are incredibly poignant, a testament to the human tragedy of the eruption. They capture moments of desperation, of embrace, of quiet resignation. Seeing them allows us to connect with the past on a deeply personal and emotional level. They are not just artifacts, they are the people of Pompeii. We'll also explore the science behind the eruption. What made Vesuvius so deadly? Geologists and volcanologists have studied the deposits here to understand the precise sequence of events on that fateful day. We'll learn about the initial plume of ash that rained down for hours, followed by the deadly pyroclastic surges that instantly sealed the city's fate. Understanding the geology helps us appreciate both the destructive force of nature and the incredible circumstances of Pompeii's preservation. Our journey will take us into the Villa of the Mysteries, a large, suburban villa on the outskirts of the city. Its name comes from a spectacular series of frescoes in one room, which are believed to depict the initiation rites of a mystery cult, possibly dedicated to Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. The figures are life-sized and seem to interact with us as we walk through the room. The vibrant reds, the enigmatic expressions, the complex narrative. It's considered one of the great masterpieces of ancient painting, and it raises fascinating questions about the secret religious practices of the time. From the grand to the mundane, every detail in Pompeii adds a brushstroke to the larger picture. We'll see the stepping stones that allowed pedestrians to cross the street without stepping in rainwater and waste. We'll peek into a thermopolium, the ancient equivalent of a fast food joint, with its counter and embedded pots that once held hot food and drinks for people on the go. We'll even find bakeries with carbonized loaves of bread still inside the ovens, ready to be eaten. It's these small, relatable details that make the past feel so incredibly present. As we wander through these silent streets, it is impossible not to reflect on the fragility of life and the enduring power of human creation. The people of Pompeii had no idea their world was about to end. They were living their lives, making plans, falling in love, worrying about their businesses, just like us. Their sudden end serves as a powerful reminder to cherish the present moment. But Pompeii is not just a story of destruction. It's a story of rediscovery and resilience. Buried and forgotten for over 1,500 years, its rediscovery in the 18th century sparked a revolution in art and design, giving birth to the neoclassical style, and it single-handedly launched the modern science of archaeology. The ongoing excavation and preservation work is a monumental task, a collaboration of experts from around the world dedicated to protecting this shared human heritage for future generations. New discoveries are still being made today, constantly adding new chapters to Pompeii's story. As our journey through this incredible city comes to a close and the daylight softens, we look back one last time at the sprawling ruins against the backdrop of the serene but ever-watchful Vesuvius. Pompeii challenges us to look beyond the stones and the ash, to see the vibrant life that once flourished here, and to feel a connection to the people who called this place home. It is a city that died in an instant but has lived on for eternity, offering us an unparalleled window into our own collective past. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through time. The story of Pompeii is a story that belongs to all of us. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I do, please give this video a thumbs up, and consider subscribing for more journeys into the world's most amazing historical sites. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious. The city of Pompeii stirred beneath a gentle morning haze. The stones of its streets, slick with dew, carried the first footsteps of bakers, merchants, and slaves. The warm air was heavy with the scent of fresh bread and crushed olives. Children ran barefoot through courtyards, their laughter echoing between frescoed walls painted with gods who, for now, still seemed to listen. Life was ordinary, perfectly, tragically ordinary. Mount Vesuvius loomed above it all, vast and silent. Its slopes shimmered green with vineyards under the rising sun, a picture of perfect peace. Few people in Pompeii even looked up at it anymore. To them, the mountain wasn't a threat, but a companion, ancient, patient, and eternal. They built their lives in its shadow, never suspecting that the mountain was also listening. In the villa of a wealthy merchant named Lucius Marcellus, slaves opened the shutters to let in the day. Sunlight streamed in, making the marble floors gleam, and the bronze statues seemed to breathe. Lucius was a man of his time, confident, indulgent, devoted to commerce and spectacle. His ships ferried wine across the Bay of Naples, his tables groaned beneath imported delicacies. He was proud of his city, of its elegance and its gods carved into every wall. He believed in permanence. But then, a faint tremor rippled through the earth. It was almost tender, like a sigh, but it made the water in the courtyard fountain quiver. The slaves paused, glancing at each other for a moment, before continuing their work. The last tremor had been weeks ago. It was nothing. At the city's edge, farmers tending their vines felt the ground shift. They looked toward the mountain, shading their eyes. Thin trails of smoke, so faint they looked like illusions, rose from its peak. A shepherd crossed himself. Others just laughed it off. "Vulcan's forge," they'd say, picturing the god of fire tending to his craft. There was a strange comfort in the story. It made the tremors feel divine, not deadly. In the amphitheater, a rehearsal for the next day's games was underway. The air smelled of sweat, leather, and dust as gladiators trained. Among them, a young fighter named Cassian struck a wooden post with ferocity, the chain at his ankle a constant reminder that his freedom was earned in blood. He paused, catching his breath, and glanced at the distant mountain. For a second, he thought he saw a thin, dark cloud twisting upward, like smoke from a dying fire. He blinked, and it was gone. In the temple of Venus, the priestess Aelia prepared the morning offerings, her movements filled with solemn grace. She had heard the whispers, that the gods were restless, that the sea had turned against the fishermen, that the earth itself was growling in warning. But as she lifted her hands to the sky, her faith held firm. "The gods do not abandon the faithful," she murmured. Still, her eyes betrayed a hint of fear. She too had seen the smoke. By noon, the city swelled with the sounds of life. Vendors shouted their prices, donkeys brayed and fountains splashed. The hum of civilization filled every alley as the heat pressed down, thick and unmoving. In the forum, Lucius met with other merchants, discussing profits, politics and gossip. The morning's tremor was forgotten, swallowed by the noise of a city sure of itself. But in the distance, the mountain began to darken. Birds scattered from its slopes. The smoke that was so faint in the morning now grew denser, blacker, writhing into the sky like a serpent. It carried the smell of rot. Along the coast, fishermen watched in confusion as the sea pulled back, a strange, silent withdrawal that exposed rocks unseen for centuries. Fish flopped helplessly on the wet sand. Then the wind shifted, and the reek of sulfur rolled in like a warning from the underworld. Inside the city, the first stones fell from the sky. They were tiny, white, and seemingly harmless, like hail from a bizarre summer storm. People looked up, some in awe, some laughing. Children chased the falling fragments, catching them in their hands. They didn't know they were catching the first ashes of a dead mountain. The sky began to dim. The laughter faltered. From her balcony, Lucius's wife, Valeria, shaded her eyes. "It's snowing," she whispered. But it wasn't snow. The flakes burned when they touched the skin. Servants rushed to close the shutters, even though daylight still lingered outside. Somewhere beyond the city walls, a deep, hollow roar echoed across the valley. Dogs began to bark frantically. In the amphitheater, Cassian heard it too. The sound came not from above, but from beneath, the earth itself growling like a living beast. Dust fell from the rafters. The instructor shouted for calm, but then another tremor struck, much stronger this time. The ground heaved. The arena's stones cracked, and men fell to their knees. Cassian looked at the mountain. The sky behind it was no longer blue. It had turned the color of a dark, ugly bruise. In the temple, Aelia clutched the altar as the marble floor trembled. Oil spilled. The sacred flames flared and died. Statues of the gods toppled, shattering against the stone. She fell to her knees among the debris, whispering the names of gods who were no longer answering. The temple's columns groaned under the strain. Outside, the birds had vanished. The world was holding its breath. The sun began to fade behind a thick curtain of ash. The air grew heavy, and people started to cough, covering their mouths with cloth. The gentle sound of the sea was gone, replaced by a distant thunder that rolled without lightning. In the harbor, the waves retreated again, exposing the keels of ships beached on the muddy seabed. Fishermen ran inland, shouting warnings that no one could hear over the growing roar. The mountain's peak now glowed with a faint, angry red. Lucius looked up from his courtyard just as the first massive plume of ash and fire exploded into the sky. It rose like a pillar of destruction, splitting the heavens. The sound that followed tore the air apart. Windows shattered. People screamed. The plume climbed higher and higher, blackening the sun, spreading like dark wings across the horizon. The day was ending, though the hour was not yet past noon. Ash began to fall in earnest now, thicker and darker. Roofs sagged under its suffocating weight. The streets filled with a gray mist that tasted of salt and metal. Cassian fled the collapsing amphitheater, stumbling into pure chaos. Aelia crawled from the ruins of her temple, clutching a broken idol. Lucius stood frozen in his doorway, his wealth, his walls, his certainty all collapsing around him. In the distance, the mountain roared again, a voice of fire calling to no one and to everyone. By evening, Pompeii was unrecognizable. The fountains were silent. The streets were empty, save for those who could no longer flee. The ash fell thicker, muting every sound except for its own sinister whisper. The sky was gone, completely swallowed by darkness. And beneath that crushing darkness, the city waited, unaware that this was not the end of a day, but the beginning of its eternity. Thank you so much for journeying back in time with us to witness the last hours of Pompeii. If you found this story powerful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more dives into history's most dramatic moments. We'll see you next time.